In the past 2 years and a half, we've built and grown a go-to-market agency from 0 to over 6 million per year. It took 31 months, and in this video, we'll share the story of our agency Code Like You, break down how we hit these numbers, and describe what we would do if we were starting from scratch all over again. So let's jump right in. The first phase of Code Like You was going from 0 to 1. In this case, that meant going from 0 to 6 clients and 0 to around 15,000 euros per month in revenue. So I bought the domain codelikeYou.com in 2020, but it's only in January 2023 that I went full-time on Code Like You. And the reason I decided to launch a cold email agency was that cold emailing was an activity I had done in most of my past jobs and previous business endeavors. I ran outbound to find clients for a Facebook ad agency I launched in 2019. Spoiler, it failed. I used cold outreach to promote an online lottery I started in the UK. It actually also failed. I used cold emails to find backlinks for an SEO company I worked at. I actually got fired from this company. And I used cold emails to find clients for a pet GPS tracking company and an AI agency I worked at. I actually got fired from both companies. So the takeaway here is that most people look outwards when it comes to identifying business opportunities. But in my opinion, you should look inwards. And by that I mean, what's a skill you've developed over the year that you could monetize? If you want to know if your business is viable or has potential, you should look for clients as soon as possible. Funny enough, the initial idea for Code Like You wasn't to launch a cold email agency. My goal was to generate affiliate revenue by sharing valuable content around tools. But what happened instead is that I started getting requests from people asking me if I could run the systems I was describing in my content. I was saying no all the time until I actually needed the money. So this one time, I said yes, and Code Like You, the cold email agency, was born. And so this relates to why you need to find clients as soon as possible. I had an idea for what I wanted to build, but the market had another idea. As I delivered the service for client 1, I realized I could probably handle 5-6 on my own and generate 5 figures per month. So I started looking for clients by doing, you guessed it, cold emails. After 2 weeks of a very mediocre campaign, I booked a qualified meeting with a lead wanting to promote his in-person event. I sent him on the spot for 4.8k per month, and then I started posting content on LinkedIn as I was still running some campaigns to find more clients. So the Call of Duty campaigns that I ran got me another client, but the posting through a viral LinkedIn post got me plus 3 clients in a matter of days. I was now at 6 clients, 15.7k euros per month, and I was struggling to handle service delivery, sales, and marketing all at once. And that's actually when Alex came in.
So at that time, I was actually working at WorldCoin, making around 80k euros per year in Berlin. And despite being happy with my situation, I could feel that I was lacking something. So that's when I had a call with Mish, probably one of the most important conversations in my life, where I told him I was thinking of quitting my job and wanting to do something around AI. During the conversation, Mish told me something I will never forget. He said, among all of our friends, you're the only one I've ever seen as a competitor and as someone that could beat me. But if you stay as an employee, you will never do it. I also saw a massive opportunity coming. AI was becoming kind of mainstream. GPT-3 had just released, and I thought if there is a good moment to actually finally launch something, it should be now. AI felt like what the internet was for the previous generation. So I told myself, okay, I'm going to record a TikTok video about AI tools every single day to get started. Mish was always telling me about that new AI tool called Clay that everyone was talking about. I wanted to learn it, but Mish was quite busy, so I spotted an opportunity that would make everyone happy. Niklas, one of my best friends, had a super successful recruitment agency in Germany at the time. He actually works with us at Code Like You now, but that's for another story. Back then, he was managing his recruitment agency, and I would tell him all the time about my friend Mish, who was running some prospection services. So I had this idea. Let's all benefit from this. On one hand, Nick needed outbound services, Mish wanted to make more money, and I wanted to learn Clay. What if I implement Clay for cheap for Niklas, while Mish teaches me how to use Clay? And then Nick could simply pay Mish. We all got what we wanted out of the deal, and that's how I actually got started with Clay. I watched a ton of videos from Eric, plus a ton of Loom that Mish actually recorded for me. After this, I offered to Mish to help him for free with a business because I thought I could actually contribute a lot. I come from a strong operational background, and Mish has this ability to work under chaos and always find new revenue stream or new acquisition channels. And where I actually thrive is in building systems for scale. His LinkedIn content was starting to generate a good flow of leads, but Mish was actually spending lots of time designing visual assets on Canva. I found Clara to outsource the design, which allowed me and Mish to post way more often, 5 times per week. Our email infrastructure setup was still very manual at the time, time. I managed to build some automations around it, teaching myself make, so we wouldn't spend so much time on it. Naturally, I also started taking clients on my own. As Mish could spend more time on marketing and selling, we managed to scale to 14 clients just between him and I. At that point, I realized we wouldn't be able to scale if we had to handle all the services delivery on our own. The timing was great because this was around the same time that Dan offered to work for free to learn around AI-powered cold emails with ColdIQ.
So the thing with Dan is that he started with us as an intern. He had a full-time job, but I was teaching him early mornings and late evenings.
Actually, remember before Dan, first time we were like, it's time to hire someone. And the way we went about it was just terrible.
It's my fault.
Michelle had a friend from the co-working space who also had a friend. And we were like, oh, you know what? Let's just talk to her. We'll figure it out. So we hired this girl, nothing against her. The fault was fully on us. We had zero process, zero SOPs, and we asked her to do a lot of random things. And in the end, it took us more time to cross-correct what she was doing than it would have taken us to do the thing herself. So in a nutshell, complete failure for the first hire. That's when I found Zaf and Sunil, who were based in India, who helped us a lot at the beginning to do a lot of the back-end work. And that's how we got started with delegating. Then Dan came along and everything changed. He was the first employee that really helped with service delivery and that finally allowed us to do something else than just being stuck selling and delivering the service.
Yeah. And so that meant that both Alex and I could focus on marketing and sales. For marketing, that mostly meant we both started to post a lot. So with both our LinkedIn accounts publishing at a high frequency, plus our outbound campaigns that were running, we began to book a good amount of meetings. That's when Alex wanted to take his first call. And so I still remember him telling me, hey, I'd like to take some sales calls to close as well. What's the best way we should do so? Shall I jump on a call with you and shadow you?
So there is this funny story about my first sales calls. So for the people that don't know me, I'm a very theoretical person. I love to read, sometimes even too much, and I'm super curious. So I was like, hey Mish, let me read a few sales books. I just want to learn how to do objection handling. I thought sales was really just a science with a lot of theory. So when I told that to Mish and Sobag was like, shut up, just do the sales calls. We have enough inbound leads. You can mess it up. It's fine. So I went into that call really thinking, well, I have no idea what to do. I'm just going to ask a lot of questions. One of my favorite books is How to Win Friends and Influence People from Dale Carnegie. And in the book, he explained that people love to talk about themselves. So I was like, let me just ask as many questions as possible and see how it goes. I entered the call a bit stressed, then just started asking questions. So I was like, what's your business? How do you prospect at the moment? What tools do you use? Okay, cool. What email finder are you using? Just asking tons of questions. At the end, I said, I think we could really help you. If I were you, I would do this. I would do this. Here's how I would set up the tool. And then suddenly the guy goes, you know what? I really like you guys. I love your content. Send me the link and I will pay today. And then that's how I realized like, wow, selling is actually that easy. It's just asking a lot of questions, figuring out someone's problem and proving you can actually help them solve that problem. After this first successful call, we started closing more and more deals. I remember Mish and I would be both working on client delivery the mornings and then we would take sales until midnight as we were actually selling to the US, being based in Europe, and we would call each other to discuss what had happened. And then there is the funny story with what Hugo told you.
Yeah, because like I remember this time I had one friend living in my place in Barcelona, and then he would look at me like, what the Alex, and you're actually crazy, working the whole day, taking sales calls until late evenings, and then like talking another hour about what happened. So this paid off because soon enough, we had so many clients that it was time to scale the team even further. With a good chunk of service delivery out of the way, we were able to free up time to focus on getting more clients in the door. On my end, I spent a lot more time creating content, making sure to publish 5 times per week, and jumping on as many sales calls as humanly possible. Soon enough, we were reaching close to 100 meetings booked per month for our company, which meant our calendars looked like the hell with sales calls back to back to back to back. Interestingly, Fivos, who was an SDR prior to coming to ColdIQ, was interested in ramping up his sales skills. So I suggested he started taking some calls in lieu of Alex and I, and soon enough, he was taking most of our calls. I find it interesting because I believe that as a CEO, your role is to be at the highest leverage point possible in your business. And the way you do so is by figuring out processes or activities and then delegating these to others once you figure them out. And so for example, the first thing you need to do whenever you are starting a business is to figure out your product or the service delivery if you are selling a service. So that means packaging something that people want and then delivering it. And so with ColdIQ, that meant delivering sales prospecting campaigns because this is how we get started. But the thing is, at some point, you hit a cap. You likely can only deliver prospecting campaigns for say 8 clients at a time. So the limit for how many clients you can have as a business is 8 clients. Now let's say you find someone to delegate these to or share the burden with, it can double the number of clients you can take on. But if you spend all your time selling, you likely can find 30 plus clients in the same time frame it takes you to deliver for 8 clients. What that means is that selling is a higher leverage activity than service delivery for you as a founder, but even selling has its limits. Because even when you take calls all day, all week, there's just a finite number of calls you can take. So if you delegate selling and focus on filling calendars for salespeople, for example, through content, now the entire organization can take on more sales calls. In the same time it takes you to take, say, 50 sales calls per month, you can likely market your company to the point that it books 150 sales calls. So what that means is that marketing is a higher leverage activity than selling because you can market to the point that several sellers jump in 50 sales meetings per month. The cap for how many clients you can take increase again because you can now book 150 meetings so that each seller takes on, say, 50, so that each person in the service delivery can handle 7-8 clients. And because you have lots of sellers, it means more people are handling more clients. So the game is really to figure out the next leverage point over and over. So on top of Fivos, we made an additional couple of great hires. Monica, who was working at Woodpecker, was already growing her brand on LinkedIn. She was posting 5+ times per week on LinkedIn, and her brand was growing super fast, so we were able to get more eyeballs on the Call brand overall. Sohail was previously a director in an outbound agency that had scaled to up to 90 people, ended up being our head of client delivery. With him at the reins of service delivery, we could focus all of our time on acquisition. Also, everyone started posting. With Monica, Fivos, Dan, Hughes, Alex, and I posting consistently, we were starting to be everywhere on the platform. Actually, I had some of my friends block and mute my whole team because they were fed up of seeing our posts. So you can guess this worked. We'd be booking a lot of meetings with prospects that had been exposed to so many pieces of our content that they would be willing to buy by the time they would jump on a call with us. So the thing is, when your brand grows, you start getting more and more opportunities. We noticed in many of our calls that many people were not just interested in applying AI to sales, but also in learning our processes. So we figured perhaps there's an opportunity, and this led to launching our accelerator program. This has generated over 300K in revenue since its inception and is bringing over 30K per month.
The funny thing about the accelerator is that we did it by actually listening to the market first. We had this idea of creating a course, but what we did was set a goal. If we sell to 25 people first and 25 people buy it, then we will actually create the course. So classic pre-selling strategy. Once we hit those 25 paid seats, we were like, okay, now we actually need to record a course. So I asked Renat, one of my friends, he actually owns a YouTube agency, to recommend some equipment. I think we ended up spending 12, 13K in camera gear. So we set up a studio in my previous apartment in Barcelona and started recording. We had to learn everything about video, like setting up all the cables, all the lights. We bought 2 fancy FX30. It was like a really nice, but also tough learning experience. And here's what's crazy. Sometimes you think you have the best idea, but the market is usually right. We thought that people wanted to learn go-to-market engineering. That's how we created the course. But actually, most people who actually bought the course wanted to scale their own AI sales agency and wanted to reproduce the success they had seen with ColdIQ. That's why on our road to $20 million, we're repositioning the accelerator. We're not focusing on teaching GTM engineering anymore. We're focusing on teaching people how to start their own AI sales agency and helping them scale. The lesson here is simple. It's like build what people want to buy, not what you think they need. The market is not always right, but in most of the cases, you should listen to the market.
And funny enough, with the accelerator program, I remember jumping on calls. People, they would jump on these calls because they would want to have some advice on their outbound campaigns. And then before they would be sort of asking about this advice, I'd sort of ask them some questions around, how's your agency going? What are you doing to market it? Like, how is it going operational wise? And then I just started giving some advice, more so about agency building than the actual service delivery that involves GTM engineering. And people will be like,
oh yeah, I had some question about GTM engineering, but can you just continue about this sort of agency building tips?
So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's not what you bought, but that's actually what
they
bought.
want. Yeah, true.
So I guess indeed, to your point, listen to the market.
We also realized that setting up an email infrastructure was an issue for many outbound teams. Thus, we decided to package our internal product as an offering for teams that were not technical enough to set it up on their own, or just didn't have the time to do it. This birthed our email infrastructure offering, which now generates over 60K every month. As we started experimenting with our own GTM, we realized that combining ads on top of our existing content plus outbound campaigns was generating very strong results. That's how we decided to add LinkedIn ad services to our offering, which combined with outbound is responsible for many client success stories, including having generated 472K at over 3x ROI for our clients in the 6 months. To be completely honest, even though these sound like success stories, it's difficult to know what would have happened if we hadn't added those new service offerings. Perhaps we would actually be further away with our agency. As we grow your company, you will see more and more opportunities coming your way. Over time, you learn that the right move is learning to say no, even when these opportunities seem more sexy than the one you are currently pursuing. So I don't know if it's the same for you, but like my biggest lesson for 2025 is that the more revenue you make, the more shiny objects you have. So there is that concept Alex Hormozy is always talking about. It is the woman in the red dress from the movie Matrix.
Yeah.
And I think 2025 is probably the year where I've seen the biggest amount of women in the red dress. Like everyone want to do business, everyone want to have your time, people want to go for lunch, people want to go for dinner, people want to go for coffee. And it really takes practice to actually recognize what is a good opportunity. And I think that's something you're really good at, to figure out, okay, what is actually moving the needle. I think for me, I get easily convinced that like, oh, maybe we could explore a conversation with that person. And I think you have always been very focused on like, what is making money now? And that's what's gonna get my focus.
Yeah, but even for me, I find it very difficult because as we grow our audiences to like 50K plus followers, and then we actually have several tens of thousands of followers on other audiences, you get like so many sort of opportunities coming in that even when you think, okay, what's making money right now, you're still thinking, okay, but imagine this thing. And for me, like I watched a video the other day, and I don't know who said that, but I love the way they were putting it. And I was saying, well, every time you say no, it's like you are saying yes to the bigger thing, you know?
Yeah.
So it's actually an example you can use for when your friends want to sort of go out. It's like by saying no to your friends, you are saying yes to, say, for example, focusing on your business. It actually comes down to knowing what's the one thing I want to focus most on, what's the most important thing in my life, and then every time you say no to some other thing, it frees up some time for you to focus on this thing. And so I think that's sort of what people need to learn as they scale. We've actually definitely made a lot of mistakes in that way, but it's definitely like one of my biggest business lessons over the last
I
few
agree.
years.
For 2025, I think it's the biggest one. And sometimes a bit counterintuitive, because when you get started in business, I would say it can also be the other way around, that you want to say yes to a lot of things because you don't have so many opportunities. So you should talk to people to understand a bit the market, have like interesting conversation. But the more you grow, the more requests you're going to have, and the more you really need to build that muscle to recognize what's worth your time and what's not worth your time.
Yeah, and I think to end on that point, that you can really move mountains just like really one step at a time. And when I think about sort of like the biggest things going on in the business, they really have been built, say for LinkedIn, for example, one post at a time. And like for our agencies, really has been like one client at a time, one outbound campaign at a time. And it's like repeating these things so many times over and over, and like just slightly improving. That meant that you come to a point where just looking back 2 years after, you realize, oh, what the hell, like we actually built something.
LinkedIn is the biggest example, right? It's really like compound, where it's every day we show up and you're going to have so many things you could be potentially doing, but the only non-negotiable for both of us is like, we need to have that post going out, and the rest can wait. Like maybe there is YouTube, maybe you want to start posting on X, maybe there is like some important meetings, maybe you need to answer to some emails, but like no matter what, those LinkedIn posts are going to be posted. And I think it's a big reason of where we are today as well.
Yeah. And I think it's a bit like with the gym, right? Is whenever you want to, say, grow muscles, or if you want to get jacked, you don't think I'm going to just like sprint my way in 2 weeks to get jacked. It's like almost everyone knows that that's not the way you do this. And so you actually know that it's going to take, say, 6 months of consistently going to the gym, say like 3-4 times per week. And then even when it comes to the exercise selection, you need to pick some exercises that you will be doing over and over, knowing that this will lead you to like the outcome you want to have. And I think with business growth or with LinkedIn, it's like you need to find those revenue generating activities. And so for example, like when it comes to our business, we really have had like huge acquisition coming from LinkedIn. which meant that like one of these revenue generating activity was posting a new publication every day, right?
Yeah.
But then there are some other stuff that we are doing, which are like some new ad campaigns, some new outbound campaigns, and so on. But it's really this thing of just focus on being consistent first, keep being consistent. And I think that's something actually we've done this year, where if you actually look at the history of our publications from, today till like back in the first day of the year, and you realize that we haven't missed a single working day of posting. We allow ourselves to rest on the weekends.
And I think our biceps have grown at the same pace as well. So
Yeah, he has some bigger biceps, but like got some bigger chest.
he has a bigger LinkedIn audience as well.
But he has a bigger X audience.
Look, before we talk about the vision for the future of Cold IQ, we also want to be honest with you. You can grow as high as you want in business. You are never protected from bad news. And so in our case, 2 months ago, we had this really tough conversation with Dan and Fivos. These were the two of the most important people in the business. Dan was the first person we trusted with service delivery, and he ended up becoming our head of GTM. And then on the other hand, Fivos was becoming our head of sales. But recently we had felt that they were not super committed to the next phase of growth in the business. They seem a bit scattered, not very motivated. And then at the time we're in the US, and one time at dinner, they announced that they wanted to launch a business, which we actually later found out was a competitor. And that's probably one of the biggest disappointments in my life, because we had done a lot for them. And that's kind of also one of the problems with the agency world, is that the moat is pretty low and anyone can just go start their own business. Today it's fine. We don't want to talk badly about them. The market is big enough. We wish them well. There is enough money for everyone. But getting betrayed from the inside always hurts. Now we've made peace with it, but sometimes you realize that no matter what scale your business is at, there is always going to be problems, always challenges, always disappointments. What really matters is that you can fail, you can be disappointed, but you just need to keep walking, one step after the other, never stalling.
And I don't want to go too much into the details of what happened with Fios and Dan. Actually, funny enough, a lot of people were interested in this because
you went viral with one of your comments.
Yeah, two things I'll say is, I think what was disappointing isn't the case that, they launched a competitor, because I feel like if you launch a business, especially an agency, there's a high likelihood that someone will launch competition. Actually, we have had the case before a few times, and we never really cared because there were never like important people in the business, and we always knew it was a possibility. I guess what was weird with Fivos and Dan was the timing of how it happened. So like they were actually pushing a lot to get some shares in our business. And we realized a bit later that they actually had built their new website in the same time frame. So like exactly at the moment where they were pushing for more shares, they actually had started and bought the domain for their new offering. And also like the other thing that was disappointing to me is that they actually never openly said that they were gonna be launching a competitor. Yeah. So when we had this conversation in the US, they mentioned that they wanted to launch something new because they sort of found a new big gap on the market, but they were a bit like shady about what was going on. I just said, guys, like whatever you want to do as a business, we've actually spent so much time. I value you, and there are obviously like gifted individuals. So I was like, if you need help with this, even if you won't be with Code Like You, like we'd be willing to fund your business, to help you. It's something where we would want our help to help you win, because somehow like they obviously helped us win. And the thing is, what happened is they didn't really talk about what they were building, and then at the moment of launch, we actually found out that they went frontally against us. So they actually went and looked at all of the sort of inside operations of the business, like all of the insider strategies, and by the day of their launch, we realized that it was a full-on competitor, and they were selling the exact same offers we were selling, using the exact same acquisition methods we were using. And so I guess like that's the biggest disappointment. They never actually said it straight to our face. That's what we're gonna do, and that's it, because even if it were the case and it's something we wouldn't have enjoyed, it's something where if they had said, hey, like I have no choice because I need to say help my family or do something like this, we would have understood that, sometimes it'd be like, that's just like the way you see it. But then they sort of just did it without saying, and then they blocked us on LinkedIn, and we never heard from them.
And they like Cold Like You so much that they even registered the company at the same address as Cold Like You.
So like I guess like for me, like this is the biggest thing, because I think that what had happened, and I guess maybe it's a lesson for us, is we actually invited them to our birthdays. I invited them to my home, And so I didn't see that as an employee launching a competitor and sort of like, taking all of the processes that were built internally, but more so as a
Friend.
just like friend just ripping you off, right? Or I mean, like someone pretending to be your friend. Like I said, like the saddest thing about the story, but the beauty of it is they left the company, and then the next month we had like a record.
Best month ever.
Yeah, the best month ever, and so it didn't change that many things anyways.
Yeah. I think it's also something you learn once like you reach a certain scale, that it's almost on us to make the business bulletproof and really make sure that no one becomes irreplaceable, because I think that's really what creates weaknesses in a business. If something important relies on one person and then suddenly for whatever reason that person is leaving, then your business can really go down really fast. So at any time you need to figure out, would I survive if that specific person is leaving? And if not, I think it's your role to actually do something about it.
So like the thing with this kind of story is that, when businesses grow, I feel like the time between two problems shortens as you scale. So, for example, when we have 5 people, there are less issues to deal with than when you have 20 people.
I would just add one little caveat, is that if you did your hiring right and actually brought A players in the business, it means that fixing problems is not just us two having to do it anymore. So for sure, there are many more problems coming with scaling a business, but you also have more people to help solving those problems, I would say.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I'd say like the only caveat to the caveat is that now like the biggest issues still fall onto us. But anyways, like today we are a team of 30 people working full time, and when we've got 30 plus people, things can get chaotic pretty quickly if you are not organized. We are not generating $500,000 per month with our company, and the key to hitting these revenue milestones has come from a few levers. First, we continually ramped up our LinkedIn content. As it stands, I have 53k LinkedIn followers, Alex has 48k, and the rest of the team combined 150k followers together. And we're actually aiming to have at least 10 people over 10,000 followers by the end of the year. Today we are booking 100 plus qualified meetings with just LinkedIn. And the beauty when you generate that many leads is that you have the luxury to say no to bad fit clients. And knowing who not to take as clients is actually as important as who to take on, because bad clients take up more time, more resources, and have a higher likelihood of being unhappy. So that's something that you need to remember as you scale your own company. You are not in the business of saving businesses, you're in the business of scaling businesses. Like this small shift will make everything easier, and it will be much easier to generate results for your clients, and so the delivery will be easier. The other thing we did is we substantially improved clients' results. In the service delivery game, nothing matters as much as keeping clients as long as possible. Because our revenue is recurring, going from keeping a client 12 months on average versus 6 literally doubles the business. So we are now actively working on systems to keep delivering better results with fewer resources thanks to technology, AI, agents, etc. And so third, we found, trained, and ramped up a team of A players. Today, in the area of AI, an A player isn't just 30% more productive than a B player. They can be 10 times more productive. And so hiring great teammates should be a priority for any company. But training them, that means investing in coaching, helping them week after week, can mean having people become A player. Because it's not how good you are at the skill, it's how good you are at delivering it at scale. And about like ramping up A players, we actually had the case a few times with Dujam and Louis, where it didn't start in the best possible way, but they've actually like ramped up so well that now they are some of our most important people in the company.
Yeah, it's true. I think like with talents, that's almost a skill you need to develop, is like having a sense of who's gonna be a A player in the long term. And sometimes you might have people that will come in directly being killers, just like delivering on everything. And then some other time you really need to invest time, like sometimes giving a few months of ramp up to people to really get them to that A player status. And I think, as Mish said, like we had a few people in the business where like the first few months were a bit chaotic. There is a lot on us as well. I think you can always do better in terms of onboarding and like training people. But it's true that for sometimes some people, they come in, you invest a lot in them, but then you also get back a lot because you really take them from where they were to like that A-player status.
Completely agreed. Now, to go from 500k to 1 million, we identified a few strategic areas we want to focus on. So one, more of what works for acquisition. That is, LinkedIn has been a consistent channel to generate leads for our company. At the moment, we publish 150 pieces of content every month on the platform. But the truth is, it's not nearly as much as some businesses owners, for example, the Hormozis, who publish 80 plus pieces of content every day. And so the idea here is simple. We want to ramp up our content production on LinkedIn to 500 pieces of content per month without compromising on quality. Another thing we want to do is adding new channel. So we started experimenting with other platforms such as YouTube and X, which actually even got an X repost from Elon Musk. So here now, X is showing some very promising signs in terms of virality. We need to sort of find out how to make it convert into clients. We also have YouTube, which is known to be a great channel for B2B, which is actually like something we
The reason we are today.
Exactly. And we are setting up systems to repurpose our best performing content across our blog, our newsletters, and additional channels that we plan on opening up.
Now, my favorite part, on the service delivery side, we started what I consider my favorite meeting of the week, Agentic Weekly, where the idea is to agentify or automate repetitive parts of the service delivery. As it stands, our best GTMEs, the people who actually deliver the service, can manage up to, let's say, 7 to 8 clients and do a really good job at it. The idea is to build systems so good that we can actually ramp up the amount of clients that each GTME can manage, which would mean being able to scale through tech instead of headcount. This would also mean that each employee would generate more revenue for the company, and more profits then also mean much better compensation for everyone in the business. That's a very interesting time right now in 2025. I think it's the first time that agencies are going to become an exciting business model again because of everything that's happening with AI and AI agents. It used to be in the past that agencies were kind of looked at as a very boring business model because you had to hire tons of people, you wanted more clients, you had to hire more people. Now, with agents, you're actually going to be able to almost scale as a software just because you're going to have a lot of those agents actually doing the delivery. And so you can enhance your best people and 10xing almost all the best people in the company. And so that's really what we are working on at the moment.
I feel like for us, it's extremely interesting to be working on the service delivery side, because the biggest bottleneck we've had scaling the business hasn't been getting more clients, but actually finding enough great people that can deliver a great service to our clients, which meant that we have actually had lots of months where we needed to say to the sales team,
hey guys, like, can we just hold off on signing new clients because we actually need to find some more people to service these clients.
And if you know a good seller, they hate hearing this kind of thing. And so now what's interesting is that as Alex builds out the systems that allow us to scale the number of clients, I can actually scale the marketing using the same kind of systems. The idea is also to be using those AI agents to actually automate a big chunk of the distribution, but to really scale. And so I think that between Alex and I, it's sort of this thing where it's like acquisition versus service delivery. Like the whole idea is finding out about the sort of acquisition systems that will allow us to generate a lot of demand and a lot of clients, while Alex builds out a system that will allow us to actually capture and monetize this demand because we have enough to deliver the service at a huge scale. And so it's sort of how we are dividing it, for the time being, to reach this first 1 million per month milestone. And once we do reach that, we'll sort of find out another thing to focus on.
I think that's really the best way to split is Mish is just the best at generating as many eyeballs as possible on so many platforms, in so many channels. And then how do we take all of those eyeballs generated, putting them into a revenue engine that's actually converting all those eyeballs in revenue. And so that's how we decided to split the responsibilities from where we are today at 500,000, where the next big milestone for us is to gonna get to a 20 million a year business. It's Mish just want to be generating as many eyeballs as possible, and I'm in charge to converting all that visibility into actual revenue.
Yeah, and I think the way I think about this is we are a go-to-market agency anyways, right? So by running a very successful go-to-market motion, some of the things we do that work for us to find clients are things we can then add to the actual service delivery. I'm sort of thinking about it in terms of making as many bets as possible. Whenever we have one of these bets that pay off, sort of trying to figure out how to deliver it, and then Alex can then identify the shit of these things so that we can deliver this at a massive scale and generate good revenue from this. And the thing with this is, this actually required a huge conversation for us because with 30 plus people, it actually gets difficult to talk with each person in the business every day. That means that you want to ensure that everyone knows what directions we are heading and what we are building towards. But actually, even between us, we had some sort of disagreements as to what we want to do. And so here at Code Like You, what we want to do is we want to be the number one go-to-market agency for providing revenue outcomes. And we want to do this by leaning heavily on AI and tech. And because we are the best at providing these outcomes, we'll be the best to talk about these and educate the market on the best technologies powering the best companies.
So guys, be ready because we are only getting started.
Yeah, and in 1 year, we're gonna be making this video again.
About 20 million.
And there's gonna be a lot to be discussed.